Hey, Ben, thanks again for joining us here. Excited to have you. Today, we're going to be talking about team building. And maybe, just to kick us off a little bit, do you want to talk about, how we think of team building, how we build team building into the work that we do and why we believe that team building and corporate impact are so important when they're together?
Yeah, I think it's also worth noting just like how high the demand is for team building experiences right now, or 2 years almost, it seems like, in this virtual world, trying to make the attempt to go into a hybrid world. And a lot of companies are still struggling. There's a lot of just a lot of things and factors at play right now. And team building just comes up again and again as something that employees are really craving. And so, in talking about that, we can share a little bit about how WeHero thinks about team building and how companies can think about it as it relates to their volunteering. I was like starting off though that I think a lot of companies are trying to replace their team outings, and they almost think about their team outings as team building, and that's really tough. Where you used to be able to go out and have happy hours together, go to a baseball game together, that doesn't happen anymore. And those team outings create a lot of out of work dynamics where you can actually connect as a team, build relationships. And so the way that we try to inject it through volunteerism is having a common goal and making impact together. And there's a lot of benefits that come with that. There's a lot of neuro benefits in the sense of the positive feelings you have while volunteering and making an impact. If you combine that with building relationships with people and having that connectivity, can become a really special mix. People ask, how is team building involved with WeHero volunteer experiences? And one of the first things I say is that volunteering as a team is a team building experience. You have a common goal and you're working together to learn about a cause, connect over a cause, and make an impact and see that impact come together at the end of an hour, 2 hours. And if it's a skills-based project, it's after a week, 2 weeks, depending on the time of that project. But team building is already an essence of volunteerism. You don't have to do too much to add to that. There's things we do that I can jump into, Andy, on how we really enhance that team building aspect of the experience. But I always just like to have people remember that when you're volunteering as a team, that is team building. You have that common goal. You're making an impact together. And it's one of the best ways to build a team and build relationships, in my opinion. And I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, Andy, if that answers your question, but we can get into just how you can enhance that team building component.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. I mean, there's so many, pre-COVID in the in-office world, there were so many organic ways to build a stronger team, whether it's just grabbing lunch with someone, the team happy hours, just catching up over the water cooler, as they say. There's so many organic ways. And I think those are really great for building relationships. I don't necessarily view those as strong team building opportunities. Like you said, there's no shared goal. There's no working together to overcome a challenge. And so in a lot of ways, you can replace the relationship building in a lot of different ways virtually. But team building is, so important for, companies of all sizes. And replacing that is hard, and creating really, creative ways to do that, I think is important. And it's a worthwhile cause for all companies to be thinking about. We believe volunteerism is a great way to do that, as you said, for a variety of reasons. But I also think, the one other point I'd touch on is, we are 15 months, 16 months into this pandemic where everyone is working on Zoom. And I think there's a feeling of Zoom fatigue, even for volunteerism. And so I think that's why we've been working with more and more clients to think out of the box, is how can you structure a competition where people aren't in front of their computer, yet there's still a lot of engagement together around volunteerism. That's why I've been doing so many different skills-based projects, just because I think, like everyone, we're tired of sitting in front of a computer. And there's a lot of ways to build a team and deliver impact that isn't just in front of a computer. And so I think those are kind of the key trends that we're seeing and why it's becoming so popular right now.
To double click on your skills-based piece, like this is one of the many reasons we like skills-based, right? Like that Zoom fatigue component. With skills-based, we're able to give teams, here's a challenge that a nonprofit organization is having. Take this challenge with you, go work on it for a few days, a few weeks, whatever the time allotment is from your company, and then come back. It's so different than having to be on Zoom all the time, do an event that way, and the impact's so much more powerful. And again, just a great way to be on a team and do something that's outside your normal workday. I think it's just a really special way to give back.
Yeah, and you come back to your team. with a stronger set of skills. You're going to learn something while you do it, and you're going to have a different experience working with one of your teammates. And I think ultimately that's going to build a stronger team. You're going to know Steve from the San Antonio office so much better after working on one of these projects. You know how they work, how to, a little bit about their life. And I think that's really what makes a stronger team and ultimately provides leverage to these companies as they're trying to do more, add more value. And I think ultimately having a better team is just fundamental in that.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
So Ben, challenge question for you. If you were sitting with a company, you have 100 employees, you don't have the time to do a full skills-based project, what would you be trying to do through your volunteerism that can make it more of a team building exercise rather than just a sit alone and deliver impact type volunteer activity?
Yeah, I think you can still do the volunteerism, but I think it's important in your agenda for that volunteer experience that you're making time for the team building relationships to actually happen. A lot of the adjustments we've been making is we try to educate people about the cause, and we're actually bringing people into that educational component now and making it competitive. So there's people have an app they can join on their phone, be part of that experience, add their input and their take. And that just gets them very heavily involved as a group in the actual education component. But then for the impact piece, it's actually giving them the time to reflect and make an impact together in smaller groups. So if you have 100 people, it's really hard to go in the course of an hour to 2 hours, we're going to unite this entire group of people and have them get together. It's way easier to go look, we're going to give 10 people out of the 100 the ability to connect and do the impact piece together as a team. Breakout rooms have been really great for that. And we give people things to really critically think about, or we give them exercises to go through. We have a Packs of Inspiration event where we have an activity called Tonight You're Homeless, and people go through a simulation together as a team. And that's really powerful and a way for people to connect and build a relationship in a Zoom meeting like that. And so those are things I think of right away in regards to how in a very short period of time, we can give people an experience where they're making an impact as a large group, but they have the ability in smaller groups to connect, build relationships, and do something completely outside of the normal workday.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think, part of all of your experiences as you think about planning them should be impact focused, right? You shouldn't be doing any experience focused on volunteerism if it's not going to deliver impact. But if you're trying to leverage team building benefits, there's so many different things you can do and build into the event. I think the other thing that, if you're a regular listener and regular watcher of these videos, you'll hear us harp on is just extending the experience. Mm-hmm. And I think of so many examples where if you're trying to fit everything into an hour, finding the time to have breakout rooms and really bond with an employee, learn about them and work together, that can be really challenging. And so, I think about some of our, events focused on environmentalism, where it's about collecting trash, for example, and then building art and competing with your team. Doing that in smaller groups and having a 40-minute art build just on Zoom at the same time, before the event, it is just a great way to casually be interacting with your team, and then competing with everyone as well. And so I think, if you can find ways to extend the experience. One other thing we love is just 3-day check-ins and then 10-day check-ins after the event with a smaller breakout room group. You can check in, understand how you're reflecting on the impact and if it changed your life at all. We think about our environmental experiences. Part of that is a lifestyle change we want people to make. And so, understanding and working with your team to make those changes more long-term is another great way to extend the experience. And so there's a lot of different ways like that, I think, that, build deeper connections, if you can only do just your standard volunteer experience.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on team building? How do you think team building is going to evolve over the next, 12 months?
The big thought and message I have for companies and people trying to implement this into any volunteer experience is remember to keep impact at the forefront. Again, volunteering is already a team building experience, but what's important is that you're expressing the challenge and why this group has been brought together and the impact they're going to create as the end result. And I think so often that's dropped and lost and forgotten. And if that's messaged and communicated to the group, and they're united along that common goal, you see people really come together. And so I always tell people as a core message, remember to keep impact at the forefront. And that's the most important piece. It's the most important piece to your employees. It's the most important piece to building a great team. And so just remember that anytime you're building a volunteer experience or opportunity, how team building is going to change, I think you're going to see companies get really creative. We're seeing a lot of things come out of the box. We're also seeing team building that's happening where the team is not together at the same time. We're seeing competitions that extend over a week, 2 weeks. These are like zero waste competitions, walking or exercise competitions, ways for teams to build and feel connected, but not all at the same time. It allows teams to do this off of Zoom. It allows them to function and do this on their own time as well. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that evolve over the next year, especially as we have more companies going, you're going to be able to work remote full time. LinkedIn made that announcement this week. And so, I think we're going to start seeing a lot of that as companies start making huge structural organizational shifts and more employees and more teams figuring out how do we keep the team together and united in this way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with all of that. I think the one thing I'm hopeful for, I agree that we're seeing a structural shift towards work remotely. But I think companies are going to recognize there is benefit to being in person every so often. And so I think back to pre-COVID, really progressive companies were sending smaller cohorts to locations for, fixed periods of volunteering. So, a lot of companies in the Bay Area would send people to do tech training in Africa for 2 weeks. And those are such strong experiences when you have the right people together, obviously delivering a ton of impact, but also working together, learning, traveling together, things like that. Obviously, that's a really big scale, a big expensive program, but at the same time, you can do that locally as well. And so I really look forward to, companies in the US meeting in a city for a quarterly offsite and focusing a day of that on volunteering. I think there's so much potential for those types of things. And personally, I'm really excited to get back to helping people deliver that impact because it's so rewarding when you can see everyone together. So I'm hopeful as the pandemic wanes a little bit, we will get back to that. But I think it's going to be very dependent on the healthcare situation. And so it'll be interesting to follow. And I know everyone's eager to do that as well.
Yeah. But if anybody listening to this needs help on how to enhance team building, let us know. We have a lot of ideas. We've been working with a lot of companies on trying to make this better. And so please let us know. We're here to help and we want to support you and reach those goals.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for listening and look forward to speaking again soon, Ben.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. Appreciate it.